ever wanted a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, you have come to the right place, because you are listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of the C&C Talks podcast.
Just a reminder, as we do every week, we release every Tuesday and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. We are taping this on Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 at about 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, right before the State of the Union address, which we'll talk about a lot more on next week's show. But on this episode, we're going to talk about the Chinese balloon, the spy balloon. We're going to give our Super Bowl preview and a whole lot more coming up. Let's start, Charlie, with that Chinese balloon that the U.S. shot down on Saturday after flying over the country for much of the week at about 60,000 feet in the sky. What are your thoughts on it?
I think this is a rather large lapse in U.S. Intelligence, because I mean, we knew that we didn't really see this coming until it was over our territory, did we?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There were 3 over our territory during the Trump administration that he either didn't do anything about or didn't know anything about. One of which, of course, would lie on him, the other on our intelligence agencies. But I think that the key here is that we were mostly, at least we think, able to stop it from gathering intelligence on the U.S. We think that the U.S. jammed it, and we were able to pick up intelligence on these balloons. So hopefully not a successful mission for China.
And do you think shooting it down was the right course of action?
I mean, look, I'm not a foreign policy expert, so I really have no clue. I trust Joe Biden to listen to the military experts, and I'm guessing that they advised that he should probably shoot it down once it was over the coast. So I'll say that was the right thing to do. Now, to all the Republicans who are just completely outraged that he didn't shoot it down over Montana, first of all, does it matter? Because if it truly was jammed and they couldn't pick up any information about from it, then why did it matter where they shot it down? And
well, the question if it was jammed, then why would it matter if we shot it down in the first place?
I think maybe I personally don't actually know at all, but I'm not sure if the U.S. has recovered it or is planning to recover it. But it might be useful to actually get their hands on the balloon. It's currently somewhere in the ocean, and it obviously did not kill anybody, hurt anybody on the way down. It landed
off the coast of South Carolina near Myrtle Beach.
And it was also, I think, nice that there was minimal disruption to air traffic. They just had to close a couple of airports as opposed to somewhere on the mainland where they would have had to close multiple.
Yes.
Or many. Meanwhile, the U.S. January jobs report came in, and Charlie, those were some very good numbers.
Yes, this was a big surprise to a lot of people. The U.S. added 517,000 jobs. They were expected to only add 188,000 jobs, and unemployment fell to 3.4%. This is the lowest since 1969.
Yeah, that's just tremendous jobs report, and with coming after some fears of a recession, it's looking less likely. But another big economic news from the White House, where Deese is leaving the White House. He's the chair of the National Economic Council. Charlie, talk about his career at the White House, because it was very impressive.
Yeah, he was the chief. He was on the chair of the National Economic Council, and he was also one of the chief architects of several crucial bills, including the American Rescue Plan and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, which is doing a lot to help America's roads, bridges, and stuff like that.
Yeah, all of that, obviously just a fairly impressive amount of budget bills managed to get through Congress, the 117th Congress in Biden's first 2 years in office. Deese played a big part in pushing those through the finish line. Like we said, Biden's State of the Union was last night. Of course, we're recording it just a couple hours before that speech, so we will recap it on next week's show. Well, in California, Charlie, Adam Schiff, the Democratic representative, will run for the Senate, face off in a primary battle with Katie Porter, who's already declared that she's running seat's currently held by Dianne Feinstein. It's unclear if she will run for re-election. Charlie, what are your thoughts on that race?
Yeah, I definitely think Feinstein should not run for re-election. I think age is definitely a factor there, considering that she's, of course, getting up there in age. I think that's gonna play with the voters a lot. So I agree that she should not run. And I do think Porter would probably be a better candidate, but I think Schiff should run, considering how the election map in 2024, which actually I think you should talk about a little bit more there.
Yeah, so I think that, I would urge Porter to drop out and run in her House district. Now, like I said, I actually might prefer Porter as a senator. I don't know, but I think Schiff's more likely to win that primary. And look, Charlie, obviously the Democrats' goal would be to win the House, Senate, and the White House in 2024. Obviously, that's both parties' goals.
Yes, but I think it's basically impossible for them.
It's basically impossible for the Democrats. Realistically, you want to win a chamber of Congress because, as we saw in 2020, there would be a real fear of Republicans maybe voting to overturn the presidential election on January 6th, 2025. So if you hold one chamber of Congress, you can prevent against that, assuming that there's not, another coup attempt by rioters. But the Senate, we've discussed this before, the Senate's just a disaster for Democrats in terms of the map in 2024. They would basically, in order to hold the Senate, have to have national numbers like they had in 2008. So, and this, I'll tell you why they won't get those numbers. That was during a Republican administration. When everything in the country was going downhill, there was a massive recession. Everything in the country could be going downhill this time, but that'll be blamed on the incumbent party, which is, at least in the White House, Democrats. And if things is looking super uphill, that's generally not actually a winning argument. You're going to have a hard time swinging a lot of voters by saying things are going great because they're all being told that things are not going great. Meanwhile, the House. Charlie, quick piece of trivia. When was the last time that the House flipped parties, in a presidential election year?
I remember, we were talking about this earlier. It's 52, isn't it?
1952.
It is 52.
And that flipped away from the incumbent president. Right, so the Democrats have a really uphill battle. Adam Schiff is running in a safe Democratic seat. Katie Porter is a fairly popular representative in her district, but it's in Orange County, and it is very much a swing district. Democrats would like to have her run for that seat because it increases their chances of winning it, and given some of the struggles that Democrats have had winning House races in California in the last couple of election cycles, right, every seat counts, right? It's a close House right now. You'd like to have a better shot at winning that seat.
Yeah. And now to world events. It was Groundhog's Day during the week that we the week that we have missed.
Yes.
So, Puxatawny Phil did see its shadow, but Staten Island Chuck did not.
Yeah, and meanwhile...
And for Groundhog in Quebec, neither happened.
Neither happened because it was dead. I find it so odd that seeing the shadow means that there's 6 more weeks of winter.
Because I don't even think the groundhog knows what it's doing.
Correct. By the way, Puxatawny Phil historically is about 39% correct.
So he's beating the odds.
Sure, but I don't know. What do you think of Groundhog's Day just as a concept? I find it hilarious.
I think it's amusing but useless.
Exactly. I feel pretty much the same way. In much more serious news, there's a pretty bad earthquake, Charlie.
Yes, in Turkey and Syria, there was actually two earthquakes. One of them being a 7.8, and I believe the other one was a 7.4.
Yeah, so just
it
complete
struck
destruction.
Parts of southeastern Turkey as well as most of Syria. And thousands of people have died, as well as several hundred buildings collapsed, leaving people trapped.
Yeah, lots of people injured also. Just complete wreckage, lots of help coming out from around the world.
And of course, even more problems for Syria, who is still stuck in that civil war that they have.
Exactly, just a really tough situation in that part of the country. Hang on, we'll move on to sports in just a second, but first a reminder that we will be live after the Super Bowl at 9 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday night with our live reaction to the game. That'll be exclusively on YouTube, Charlie. Really looking forward to that. We'll discuss the game. Might discuss the halftime show, some commercials, a whole ton of other NFL stuff.
And knowing us that we have a blooper segment, there'll probably be just us being
There will
stupid
be
as well.
live bloopers. That'll be fun.
We can't hide from it now.
Can't hide from it now. Yeah, but moving on to sports, we'll preview the Super Bowl, Charlie. What are your thoughts heading into the game?
These two teams are absolutely stacked. This is going to be a great game. I'm going with Philadelphia.
You're going to go with Philadelphia by, like, what type of score
I'm
are you
going
looking
Philadelphia by 7.
at? Exact scores? Or, like, what are we talking here?
So, they're going to win by anywhere from 1 to 10. I don't think they're going to win by more than 10.
Okay, but, like you said, I feel like these are really the two teams. It couldn't really happen in any other way this season. It's been a wild NFL season, but ultimately I think that the two best teams made the Super Bowl. I mean, the Eagles, kind of flawless, did fall off at the end when Jalen Hurts was injured, but what a season he's had. And then, of course, Patrick Mahomes has been as great as ever, and I feel like he's somewhat underappreciated sometimes.
Sometimes he is over supported sometimes too, however.
I like the Chiefs in this game, actually.
By how much?
I think it'll be a really tight game. I'm gonna have Mahomes leading like a game-winning drive with like 30 seconds left on the clock. We'll call it 27-24. And I mean, last year was a good Super Bowl. There's been some really lackluster Super Bowls in the last few years. I think that this will be,
including the Rams putting up 9 points in 2019.
I think it was less than that, actually. I think they put up 3, but I might
Oh
be
no,
wrong.
you're right. They did.
I think they put up 3, but either way, I think that this will be a really good Super Bowl to cap off the 2022 NFL season. But also in this season was the Pro Bowl in this past week. NFC did win the Pro Bowl, but it was a completely new format with flag football and a whole ton of other challenges. What were your thoughts on the new format?
I actually really liked it. I thought it was really creative what they did. I liked that it was more casual.
Yeah,
than previous years, and I think it was really good. I think the variety was great as well.
I'll tell you this: the players enjoyed it.
No, they definitely did.
It was very clear, and I mean, very casual. I loved that you were able to see the players' faces during the games and hear their commentary throughout the games more. Definitely something I think that it could definitely be tweaked, but overall, I think it's better than the old version of the Pro Bowl, and yeah, I'd like to see them continue doing something like this in the future. But that's not even the biggest NFL news in the last week. There's a lot bigger NFL news, Charlie.
Yep.
Tom Brady has announced his retirement. What are your thoughts on this outstanding career? And also, I guess, do you think he'll come back again?
I do think he's done this time.
Same.
I gotta say, what a career, though. Considering he was a 6th-round pick, really came out of nowhere, won 7 Super Bowls.
7 Super Bowls.
And he went to 10, I believe.
He's won more Super Bowls than any single team.
Well, we'll see how long it takes for the Steelers to win another one.
It might be a while.
Or the Patriots.
Or the Patriots, and that might be a while too.
Yeah, I'm thinking the only team that might be able to get there is probably maybe the Niners over the next few years.
I mean, but they'd need several Super Bowls, not just one.
Yeah, they need 3.
3, I believe.
Yeah.
3. But no, Tom Brady has, if you look at it, he's had 3 Hall of Fame careers in one career.
The 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s.
Basically. He's not just the GOAT, Charlie. He's the GOAT by a mile.
He's the GOAT of the GOATs.
There's no one even close. I could make an argument that he is the greater at his sport than any other athlete is at their sport. Ever.
I think...
I could make that argument.
That's correct.
I could make that argument. So yeah, just a wild career comes to a close. Been some suggestions over the last week about his number potentially being retired league-wide. Do you think that that's something that the NFL should do? Why or why not?
I don't think so. I think the teams that should retire his number are the Patriots and the Buccaneers. I just don't think it's a good idea just to have league-wide retired numbers. I just don't like. I like what baseball did with Jackie Robinson, but I think that's really the only example that you should do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the NBA retired Bill Russell's number league-wide as well.
This year.
I think that when you're retiring a number league-wide, it should not just be about on-field accomplishments. And boy, like we said, Brady had on-field accomplishments like no one else. But I feel like off-field accomplishments really should come into consideration into that as well. Obviously, Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in baseball, everything that's going on with him, Bill Russell, I feel like made them worthy. Brady, I feel like just hasn't done much off the field in his career. He's been on the field and you haven't really heard from him anywhere else. So I would say no. turn to some basketball news. Breanna Stewart signed with the New York Liberty. She was with the Storm, who also lost Sue Bird this offseason to retirement. Stewart was the 2018 WNBA MVP, 2-time Finals MVP, and 4-time All-Star. But there's a lot bigger basketball news, Charlie.
This time from the NBA.
From the NBA regarding Kyrie Irving.
Yep, he requested a trade, and he got that trade, not to the team he wanted, but he was traded to the Mavericks. He wanted to go to the Lakers. Then the Nets get back.
Yeah, Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith. So,
what are your thoughts on this?
Looking back on the last few seasons, Charlie, if the Nets could have seen how this had gone,
they
how the
100% not taken that trade.
The idea of pairing Durant and Irving together, would they have done it? I would say no. Right? Just a disaster. It ended with 3 trade requests from Harden, who they brought in, from Durant, and then Irving. Durant's the only one who has not been traded, at least as of this taping. It was marred by scandals off the court, with Irving refusing to get vaccinated. Obviously, then him with the anti-Semitic problems, him getting suspended by the team. Just completely off-court drama. That's what marked this era of the Brooklyn Nets. Durant and Irving had everything that they wanted. They got their head coach that they wanted. They got their GM that they wanted. They got Harden. When that didn't work out, because it was James Harden and that personality just didn't work with the other two, they brought in Ben Simmons. That was a fiasco. And do you know what they got out of this era?
What?
They won 1 playoff series.
And it was against
against a play-in team.
The Celtics.
The Celtics in 2021. That's the result. That's what they have to show for it. And I think that this was a good trade for the Nets. Honestly, anything that gets rid of Kyrie Irving, in my opinion, was a good trade. But I think it was a terrible trade for the Mavericks, especially since we have no clue how that's going to work. And if Kyrie Irving doesn't sign with Dallas this offseason, well, then the Mavericks are really screwed.
They have Doncic.
They have Doncic, but they got rid of their other 2 best hires. They have no defense whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it's really...
they're going to have to rely on...
They're a win-now team now.
They're going to have to rely on Doncic and Kyrie, both players who like to play on the ball, working out together, and something tells me that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I just don't understand why this was done. I understand why Kyrie was traded, but I don't understand why the Mavericks wanted to accept this deal.
Yeah.
We've seen that Kyrie Irving is trouble, and I don't know why you would take him.
I wouldn't take him for I wouldn't take him for anything. I if someone said, "Here's Kyrie, we'll pay you $10,000 to take Kyrie Irving or whatever." I guess in basketball, $10 billion. But I'd say no. I don't want him.
I would take it and then cut him.
Oh, and then cut him. Yeah, no. Every team that he's been on, he's just poisoned the locker room. He's a disaster. Moving on to the FIFA Club World Cup. This is this FIFA tournament between the winners of the Champions Leagues from every continent. Auckland City was eliminated in the first round by Al Ahly. The Seattle Sounders in the quarterfinals, first U.S. team to ever get to the FIFA Club World Cup. They were eliminated also in the quarterfinals by Al Ahly, and Al Hilal eliminated Wydad Casablanca. So the semifinals set up are Al Hilal versus Flamengo and Al Ahly versus Real Madrid. Charlie, meanwhile, the NBA All-Star reserves were announced. From the West, it's John Morant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Domantas Sabonis, Paul George, Damian Lillard, Lauri Markkanen, and Jaren Jackson Jr. And from the East, it's Joel Embiid, DeMar DeRozan, Jaylen Brown, Bam Adebayo, Drew Holiday, Julius Randle, and Tyrese Halliburton. What are your thoughts on this list? Do you think that there were any major snubs, or did they mostly get it right? I mean, we didn't see James Harden on here. There were a few other players.
I think for the most part, they did pretty well. But I don't know basketball all that well. But from the guys I know, from what I see up from this list, it seems pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're going to see a couple of replacements. Also, Curry and Durant likely out for the All-Star game. They're both starters. And finally, Charlie, I'll let you handle this one because you've loved talking about him kind of the last several months. There's been a lot of rumors surrounding one Aaron Rodgers. Go.
All right. Well, here's the thing. There's two options here. There's the one everyone's saying is going to happen, and then there's the one that I think will happen. He's not going to the Raiders.
You don't think so? Even with Davante Adams on that
I don't
team.
think he's going to the Raiders. I just don't think so. I think the Raiders are going to try to get someone in the draft. Because you know what they don't need? They don't need an aging quarterback. They need someone who can give them long-term success.
That is true. And I mean, Jared Stidham's not going to cut it. We know Derek Carr's not coming back.
No. I think he's going to the Jets.
You think he's going to the Jets?
He can go there. He can help Zach Wilson. Maybe.
That's a big F. That's a big F.
And if he can chain up either Mike White,
yep,
or Wilson.
Yep.
See how they do, and then when he retires, they'll be in a better position. And of course, you have that elite Jets defense.
Yep, that's
and
for sure.
And the improving Garrett Wilson.
Yeah,
I think he's going to New York.
You think he's going to New York? But with the Raiders, how do you envision them getting a top quarterback in the draft? Because they don't have the pick to do that, or do you think that they trade up?
I think for them, they are not in a good position. They have virtually no defense.
They haven't for all of Derek Carr's tenure there.
They haven't, and their offense isn't great.
That's
fine. Derek, yeah, but they don't have a quarterback.
Yes.
I think it's time to rebuild. I think you see what you can probably get at least 2 first-round picks for Davante Adams, at least.
But have they been in anything but a rebuild for the last many, many years?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think that they have gotten enough draft capital to fully start a rebuild yet. I think they just need to knock this thing down, trade Davante Adams, and finally fully accept and start rebuilding.
Yeah, they've never really done that. They
just kind of been committed to the rebuild.
They've just kind of been mid for a long time. I mean, they made the playoffs a couple years ago, barely.
And then they got flattened.
And they got flattened by the Bengals.
And they shouldn't have made the playoffs last year. Oh, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, that was that year.
Yeah.
And yeah, they should not have made it then. Any more thoughts on Aaron Rodgers?
I'm done.
You're done. Okay. Go ahead.
I know Colin is not going to like me saying this. We had 3 more F1 car releases with Williams, Alfa Romeo, and Red Bull releasing their cars as we prep for the season with preseason testing beginning on February 24th. Alright, looks like this episode's over. I'm going to hand it back to Colin.
Yeah, right. Make sure that you subscribe to the C&C Talks podcast, where we have episodes coming out every Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, Again, we're available wherever you listen to our podcast. We've also got a huge live stream coming up on Sunday after the Super Bowl, so make sure that you check that out. Also, visit our website, cctalks.net, to learn everything that you need to know about the show. And make sure to call us with your questions, 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. For our producer Morris, our production designer Zach, and our co-writer Drake, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.